Hi everyone, it's Madison. Today's video is about the last episode of the new adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand. This video will contain spoilers for the new miniseries, the previous miniseries, and the book, so if you don't want those spoiled, you should head out now. Episode 9 starts with Fran delivering her baby and the baby getting sick from Captain Trips. This part was emotional for me, even though I knew Fran's baby was going to pull through, especially hearing Fran's narration, how she thought that she was just prolonging her baby's suffering. But the baby does get better, and then weeks later we see that Fran is still waiting for Stu to come back. At this point, I thought that Fran was going to go after her man. All she was doing was sitting around, and I was like, no, this is 2021. She needs to go after him. I thought for sure Fran was going to be like, yes, I just had a baby, and I am a mother, but I am also a person who is capable of going on a journey to save someone that I love. But instead, the show had her go, yes, I just had a baby and I am a mother, so I'm gonna stay in town where it's safe and just hope that my husband comes home. The woman that said God can't run all of it doesn't seem like the kind of woman that would wait weeks to find out if her husband was still alive. It seems to me like she understands the concept of free will pretty well and that she would make the choice to go and find Stu, especially after she had her baby. I think that if Fran from the books had already had her baby at this point in the story, she definitely would have went after Stu to find him, and I think that that would have been a more empowering storyline for her character. Instead, Stu and Tom just magically show up at the vigil. That's right, they didn't bring Nick back, and they completely just skip over Tom's moment where he helps Stu get back to Boulder. In fact, they just completely skipped over their journey altogether. But surely we're being rushed along in the storyline because they're bringing up a new interesting story for the last episode, right? No. Honestly, if you haven't seen the last episode yet, just watch to the part where Fran and Stu reunite and then stop watching. As soon as the line dancing starts, it's all downhill from there. Actually, that's true of most situations in life. Once the line dancing starts, you should probably get out. Anyway, Stu looks hella good in that cowboy hat, but then he starts line dancing and it completely ruins the effect. He goes from Cowboy Daddy Stu to, oh my god, I'm having horrific flashbacks of Go Cowboy Day at elementary school. Note to self, never date a cowboy. The risk of spontaneous square dancing is just not worth it. After this, Fran decides that she wants to go back to Maine. Because now that everything is safe and civilization is rebuilding, let's go off by ourselves in a world without any medical professionals. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, your husband almost died from a broken leg a few months ago, something that used to be really simple to treat in the old world. And this should theoretically show you how vulnerable you both are in this world with limited medical care. But sure, go off on your own. This storyline was dumb in the book and it's dumb in the show, but whatever. So Stu and Fran are on their way to Maine and they stop at a little house in Nebraska. They split up because of course they do, and Stu ends up with a flat on the road right around the same time Fran is about to do something very stupid. So this is the part where I have to say that I'm not just frustrated with the finale, but also with people's comments that I've seen about how this ending is meant to be more empowering for Fran's character. Yes, she is given slightly more agency in this storyline than she is in the original, but the fact is she was still left out of the story's climax so that she could stay at home and pop out a baby and then wait for her husband to come home. That's not empowering. In this case, Fran displays agency by being an idiot who falls down a well despite the fact that Stu was literally on his way back with water. She risked her life over water they didn't even need. She even hesitates and stops for a second as if she still has a few brain cells firing up there. But before I could say, thank God they're not going to have Fran do something that stupid, she was already in the hole. Meanwhile, Kojak looked as frustrated as I felt. He was standing around like, I am trying to keep you people alive, but you are making it so hard. So what does this storyline provide Fran in terms of empowerment and agency? Well, she does use agency to get herself into trouble. Then she's given the choice to let Flag possess her from time to time in exchange for his promise of safety, and so she bites him and runs away. It's not exactly empowering to run away, but she does make a decision. And then she needs to get rescued by Stu. That is Fran's empowering storyline. Falling down a well and getting rescued by a man. I was hoping that even if they didn't improve upon the original storyline, that they wouldn't make Fran feel even more helpless. My expectations were so low and yet I was still disappointed. I've seen people say Fran couldn't go to Vegas because she was pregnant, but like, she could have. God killed millions of pregnant women and babies during this humanity reset, so he absolutely could have called upon Fran to sacrifice herself, or to at least be willing to make that sacrifice and to take that journey with the others. And if they did this, they didn't have to kill her either. They could have had her go into labor after Stu broke his leg, and then have Larry's group have to leave both her and Stu behind. I'm just throwing it out there that it was an option. Or again, they could have had Fran go after Stu and rescue him after she had the baby if they wanted to give her a storyline that was empowering and give her agency. Not have her fall down a well and have to be rescued by Stu, which is the opposite of empowerment. So after Stu and the little girl that is presumably Mother Abigail's spirit rescue Fran from the well, the little girl heals all of Fran's injuries and then disappears. Yes, that's right. After Stephen King received criticism for using the magical Negro trope, he actually leaned more into this trope instead of less. So for those of you that don't know, this trope is where a black character is seen as being wiser or more spiritual than the white protagonist that they are helping. Their sole purpose in the story is usually to help the protagonist realize their faults, overcome them, and become a better person. It's usually considered an offensive trope because it puts black characters in a position of being subservient to the white protagonist that they are serving. These black characters often lack agency and are usually only seen as being important in a role of helping the main characters. These characters are usually only seen as being important in terms of how they help the main characters of the story, which is why previous versions of Mother Abigail, in my opinion, did not fall into this trope because Mother Abigail herself is a main protagonist, and also because the other characters in the story see her as being their leader. But in this episode, she is literally just a black girl that shows up to heal the white protagonist while the older version of herself is giving advice to the same protagonist. It's pretty difficult to deny that this trope is in play here, and it's kind of disappointing. This new subplot doesn't work for me on a storytelling level either. The little girl just appears and disappears and feels like a terrible plot device. Fran's big moral struggle is just her choosing not to trust Flag and make a deal with him. Is that really even a choice whenever you can't trust the person that you're making a deal with? And then on a literal level, her big moment is just her biting Flag and running away. Not super empowering. The last few scenes between Fran and Stu are okay, and then we get the last scene with Flag where he murders the leader of the tribe and takes over, pulled straight out of the unabridged version of the book, but unfortunately it just feels more campy than menacing. Overall, I feel like calling this a new ending is kind of ridiculous considering the only new elements was the well subplot and the addition of the childlike version of Mother Abigail. Based on the beginning, I really thought that Fran was going to go after Stu and Tom and save them, and I would have been a lot more excited to see that storyline. Or even just sticking with the original ending. I really wanted to like this episode. I wanted to be able to tell my writing friends, see, if Stephen King can go back and revise his greatest story 40 years later, don't feel bad if you don't get it right the first time. You can always improve it later. But now I feel like this is a cautionary tale. If the finished product is pretty good, maybe don't keep messing with it. So on a scale of making 5 babies with Stu Redman to giving Randall Flagg temporary possession of my body, this miniseries falls under the possession category. I could have given this miniseries 3 out of 5 stars overall, but this episode alone is just 0 stars. Seriously, I want to pretend that everything after Fran and Stu reuniting just didn't happen. At least there will never be any doubt that the original miniseries was better. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I post horror commentary, book reviews, and writing advice on this channel. Next month, I'll be discussing bizarro fiction and survival horror. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.